So thanks for joining me and taking time this afternoon. I wanted to just gather with principals to really go over some of the basics of this mentoring undertaking that we're engaging in, this journey that we're on, so that we're all on the same page. So we know what to expect of the work, so we know what to expect of each other, and so you know what to expect of me. There's an agenda in the chat, and I'll let you kind of manage your own screens and how you want to do that today. If you want to open the agenda and follow along, feel free to do so. I'll take notes in it as we go so that we've got everything recorded in one place. And then I'll send out an email afterward with all the info as well. So I want to start with any questions that you all are bringing. And so if you don't have any right off the bat, then we'll jump into other things. But I want to make sure that I address questions that you're bringing first. So Emily, Tim, New, I'm not sure if you've got questions you came here with, or if we should just move ahead with our agenda.
I do not have any questions. Just hoping to learn more. Kyle is kind of the one doing most of the communication, so just kind of stepping in for him right now and learning more.
Great, sounds good. Thanks, Emily.
I have no questions.
Great, perfect. All right, and Tim, I saw your thumbs up. All right, so we'll start with just kind of a brief overview. Mentoring, of course, has been a part of our district for a long time, so mentoring is not new, but school-based mentoring is new. And so the purpose of that is really just to support our beginning teachers through their first 3 years of the profession. Our district mentors support our first-year teachers, but DPI tells us we must, and we know it's best practice to officially support teachers through 3 years. So this is one step in that direction. Generally, the support informally for year 2 and 3 teachers falls on our instructional coaches and those teachers' instructional teams and departments. So we want to have a more formalized approach to that. My vision and the vision of MMSD in mentoring is that our mentors are sort of walking alongside these teachers on their journey. Hey, Josh, welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Lachelle.
Thanks for popping over. I know you probably came from the special ed drop-in or something else that we're doing for reopening. So that really is the vision for mentoring in general, and the vision for school-based mentors, that they just kind of walk alongside our beginning teachers on that journey. And I'll get a little bit more into the details of how that works with this role specifically. Josh, I dropped the agenda into the chat for you. You can follow along there if it's helpful, or you can just listen if that's helpful. And if you have questions that you came here with, Josh, if you want to throw those in the chat or the agenda, I'll make sure that we talk about them. So this spring, the scope of the work for your school-based mentors is that they've got 1.5 training sessions left to go. So they've completed 2.5 sessions of their training with the Dane County New Teacher Project so far. So they have 1.5 training sessions left to complete. Hey, Anu, welcome. So they will be doing that the end of February and beginning of March is the next session for this 3rd training. And then April is the final one for this year. Those continue to be after school virtual trainings, hoping that next year we can do them in person. And that is all through Dane County New Teacher Project. It's the same training our district-wide mentors get. If you are talking to your mentors, you may have heard from them that these trainings seem to be very focused on what seems like instructional coaching to them. It's true, it has a very heavy instructional focus. And we spent some time in our monthly meeting last week distinguishing between the roles coach and mentor. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Your school-based mentors know that I expect them to have sort of a foundational understanding of the instructional side of mentoring, and they are there to support these new teachers first and foremost. So I am not expecting for sure at this time at all that they approach it with a heavy instructional lens. They need to first build that relationship and then move on to doing some of the more instructional pieces, especially because we're starting 2nd semester and all the other things that we're in the midst of. Their mentoring can look a couple of different ways. They have 15 hours that I'm paying for them to mentor this semester. They have a way they're keeping track of that for me. And that 15 hours of time can look a lot of different ways. It can look like classroom observations if schedules allow for that. I want to be clear that I'm not asking you to shift teachers' schedules this semester to allow for classroom observations. If that doesn't work naturally, then we don't need to do it. We have enough shifting happening in our buildings, and we don't need to shift any schedules right now. It can look like meeting to plan and debrief. It can look like attending team meetings together. Any specific contact that your school-based mentor has with their beginning teacher around the area of, walking alongside them to improve teaching counts toward their 15 hours. They also meet with me monthly, either before or after school, for kind of PLC problem solving, digging into the work. They are paid for all of those hours out of our grant. And so you can know that they're getting that extended employment rate there from us. Any questions on sort of the scope of the work for this spring? All right, and Anu, I have an agenda here. Did I put it in the chat after you jumped in? All right, there it is for you, Anu. All right. So I want you also to understand our vision for this work moving forward as a whole, so you know sort of the pieces of it. I reached out to you all specifically and your schools specifically for a variety of reasons. One might be that you have a bunch of new teachers and it makes sense to start there. One might be that, and well, this is true for all of you, your commitment in the way that you run your school to anti-racism and to teacher development is really, it's vital. You know it's vital. You show it in what you do every day. And so automatically we know you're already doing things to support your new teachers. And this is just a way to kind of formalize that. And so all of that kind of factors into why we're starting with you all. We have 10 mentors, we have 9 schools, elementary through high school that we're working with. And so as we move forward, we next year want to train 10 to 20 more mentors across the district in the same way we're training your mentors right now. We want to establish an ongoing community of practice for these school-based mentors and partner with Dane County New Teacher Project to support them as well. There are many districts around Dane County that have mentoring that is only this model, where there are full-time teachers who are mentoring one other teacher. And so we're learning a lot from districts that use this as their primary model. We are lucky in that we have our district full release mentors who are mentoring our year 1 folks. And so we get to play with this model for mentoring folks in their 2nd and 3rd year. After that, in 22-23, our goal is to have at least one trained mentor at every school across MMSD and to grow those communities of practice, and then complete our vision for a system of school-based mentoring, not just sort of individual folks doing the work. And then in 23-24, our goal is to formally establish a role. And so the proposal I'm working on is that the mentor would be named something like chair of induction. It's not going to change their job at all. They will still be a full-time teacher. What it does is it gives them some compensation in terms of pay, and at the secondary level, the possibility of a release period in order to do some of this mentoring work. So that is nothing that is sort of formalized yet. It's in a proposal plan that I have, but part of our goal here is to lift up those folks at your schools who are already leaders and really recognize them more formally as leaders and compensate them for that, right? Your mentors told me last week when I met with them that they felt honored to be lifted up by you for this role. They were amazed that they had the ability to walk alongside new teachers in this way. And so know that they are really appreciative of the fact that you have named them for this. So I just wanted to share that with you all. It was moving for me. Questions about the general vision for the work moving forward and where we're going long term? Cool. All right. So just to know that you're starting this journey with me. And I'm really thankful that amidst everything else, you said yes and your teachers said yes, because I'm really excited about where we're going. This is not new to mentoring, but I want to specifically call it out also in this group so you all hear me say it. The mentor-mentee relationship is really unique. It's unique in that it is focused on the needs of the beginning teacher, right? As that beginning teacher brings those needs to the mentor, the beginning teacher gets to define some of the focus of the work. So they get to say to their mentor, like, hey, I'm really struggling with, classroom engagement, or I'm really struggling with organizational structure for, my lesson plans, or whatever it might be. And the mentor gets to dig into that with the teacher. It can also be guided by you if you see specific needs for that new teacher, but the mentor is not working for you as the principal in that sense, right? The instructional coach plays more of that role of working for you to execute your SIP and to develop your teachers in that way. The mentor works more for the teacher, if that makes sense. So just some subtle differences, a lot of the same kind of work in the end. But know that while you can have conversations with your beginning teachers and your mentor about where they might focus, ultimately the work is left up to that pair of teachers, right? They also maintain a confidential relationship. So any notes that the mentor is taking, any tools and strategies that they are working on with the beginning teacher remains confidential. The reason this is so important, and a lot of you know this, it's not new information, is because we want that beginning teacher to be completely raw and vulnerable with their mentor. That's where the real growth happens. And if they have any sense of the relationship being evaluative, or any sense of the relationship being one where then the mentor goes back to the coach or the principal and says like, oh, hey, here's what we're working on and what this person shared with me, it doesn't allow for the same growth. And so what we would ask you to do as principals is to honor that confidentiality, and to, as hard as it is, avoid asking specific questions of the mentor like, hey, how's that beginning teacher doing? Because that puts the mentor in a really awkward position to have to say to you, actually, I can't share details of that. Please ask general themes of what they're working on. Please guide them with what they could work on based on what you notice in your observations of that teacher. But also please protect that relationship that exists. All right, and then next year, moving ahead to next year, these mentors that have joined our journey will have 4 more training sessions next year. We're hoping these get to be in person. It's much easier if they're in person. If they're in person, we'll provide a sub for them for the day and they'll go to the training session. If they're virtual, they'll be after school again like they are now. The training is fully paid for from our grant. And so none of this is any implications on your budget in that way. What we want to ask you to think about looking ahead to next year as you consider budgeting and allocations and scheduling is how can you be creative with your schedule so that your mentor has built-in time to work with their beginning teacher. And so that could look a couple of ways. It might be at the secondary level, a strategically placed planning period, right? So maybe their period they're not teaching is placed in a way that sort of lines up with a beginning teacher. It might be at the elementary level or at the middle school level, lessening some of the other duties the mentor has, recess duty, door duty, those kinds of things that are shared among staff, so that the mentor can have little bits of extra time built in order to mentor. We do still, we're working at a financial plan to compensate mentors again, like we're doing this year, until it's sort of formally part of our system. So we'll continue to do that. And we also know that time is sometimes more important than actual dollars. So we just want you to think creatively about what that could look like in your building to allow for some of that natural time to occur. We're not asking you to do anything drastic, but just to consider what you might do to support those scheduling needs. And you don't know who the beginning teacher is going to be next year yet. So So you can't align people exactly, but just sort of allowing some time if possible. The one last thing to think about for next year, and I'm going to say it and then you can forget it until May, is that we will transition one of the first year teachers that are currently being mentored by a district mentor. So somebody in your building who's being mentored by Annabelle, Michelle, Elizabeth, or Jill, they will transition to your school-based mentor for next year. So my district mentors know that, your school-based mentors know that. And so in May, my full release mentors will facilitate a transition process. And what I want you to do when we get to that point is to have some input into which of your new teachers gets mentored next year by your school-based mentor. So we'll revisit in May. You don't need to think about that again until that point, but I want you to know that that's the plan for handoff. All right, you've heard enough of me. That's the end of my list of things to tell you. What questions do you have? Or what clarifications do you need?
I don't have any. Thank you, Lachelle.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So first, before we sign off, I just want to thank you, like, really sincerely for being a part of this. I know that your mentors are doing the work of it, but you are creating space and time for it. And that matters so much to them. It matters to our beginning teachers. And I wish you could have all been in that meeting last week where they were just so thrilled and honored to be lifted up in this way. And so thank you for giving your teachers that opportunity and for, just having a hand in supporting our beginning teachers in this way. You know where to find me. I think you all have my phone number. You all have my email, of course, and everything else. Let me know what I can do to support. Let me know if you want to brainstorm about ideas for next year, and continue to reach out with anything else. I'll be in touch with email, and we'll get back together in May to talk about handoff. All right.
Thanks, Lachelle.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you all. Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.